conversations that have taken place here over the last several years. This idea came about a while back because while every session is viewable on YouTube, on the JLF website, but nevertheless reading a book is what it's all about. And so the JLF team decided to put together this book. And then some of us who are in many ways connected with JLF opted to offer to help with it. And together we worked to put together this first book. But you can imagine how difficult it is to cull out the best of the sessions because pretty much every single session is so good. And you can imagine how difficult it is to keep the balance of getting out sessions by Indian writers, writers in Indian languages, non-Indian writers, writers from non-Western countries, women and men, young and old, and so on. So we've tried our best, and how we did it was that the two festival directors made their long list of sessions, and then we looked at the transcripts, and a number of interns working in the office where I work, which is a publishing house called Zuban, helped to transcribe the sessions, and then we discussed those with the authors and put them together in this book. And how we are going to do this today is to have a brief chat where Sanjoy Roy, who's the producer of the festival, you've seen the man with white hair standing to greet everybody when we come in.
It's not white, it's from the bottle and it's silver. Just for
Sorry,
the record.
The man with silver hair, and I'm often told that your hair is nearly like Sanjoy's but not quite. So here's my aspiration right next to me. So Sanjoy is going to tell us a little bit also about the book, and we're going to ask Amish Tripathi, who needs no introduction to any of you, to talk a little bit about what he thinks of the book, which he's just managed to glance at. And then we're going to ask Ishani, who works at Zuban, to tell us a little bit about the process and the challenges. And I just want to tell you that the person who manages this stage, Mani Suri, where is she, is the designer who put it together. So a big hand for Mani. And Mani, you can come and tell us what a nightmare it was to do the design, because we did it across several countries. Mani was in Australia and we were here and so on, not here, but in Delhi, and so we did it, we coordinated it, and we got it out just in the nick of time, and it's in the bookshop. So please go and buy it, but I'll turn over to Sanjoy now to talk about it.
So, you know, about 2 years ago when we first started thinking about what else can we do, and we receive requests all the time from people to say, hey, you know, it's not enough just to be able to watch the sessions online. Why can't you put together a book which compiles and presents some of the best conversations so they are preserved for eternity in some kind of touchy-touchy, feely-feely book version. And, you know, we began discussing it, literally it was 2 years ago, and I told Mani we needed to do a book, and Namita, William and I discussed it, and it was really difficult getting it off the ground because every time we sat down to look at the sessions we wanted to sort of have transcribed, it was the most incredibly difficult task to make it comprehensive. I mean, when you have a conversation which is natural, of course, it sounds very good on stage, but what does it sound like when you actually present it as the printed word and you read it off? And of course, many of the authors were very sensitive because the minute you print what they're saying, it sort of really becomes part of history. So that was some of the difficulties, but I think if you look through this book, you will see some of the most remarkable sessions. And when I revisit it, and at the end I'm going to ask Urvashi if I can read you 2 passages, one from Mahashweta Devi some years ago, which opens the book, and one from Nayantara Saigal that closes the book, you will see that irrespective of time, how even today, 9 years or 10 years into the festival, how important it is to actually hear people like this. And one of our themes, as you know, and that's what I alluded to in our opening, in the inaugural session, was we've become such a shrill world and a shrill nation, where across the divide we tend to shout at each other in the name of debate and in the name of news hour or whatever it is. But perhaps there's a time to listen and a time to introspect and a time to understand that between the two ideologies of left and right, the different religions, the different viewpoints, there is a middle ground. Because finally, at the end of the day, it's about what makes us, each of us, human. It's about empathy. It's about equity. It's about equality. And reading through some of these essays, which is really put together in a brilliant way, you will see that reflected again and again, and that's why it's so important. In our world today, we come from diverse cultures, we come from diverse parts of both India and the world. In each of these places, we are confronted with our own reality. America is confronted with the gun laws. America is confronted with color and all the problems therein. We are confronted with inequality, with poverty, with caste system, and so on and so forth. There are similarities in our histories, there are similarities in the progression of ideas, and most importantly, I think the worldwide, you'll find similar solutions to similar kinds of problems. Because as long as we start to listen and not just dictate, you will immediately find that there's a way forward.
Thank you, Sanjoy. Thanks for that. I'll ask Amish to give us your immediate reactions to the book. You're, of course, one of the people who's featured in it.
Yes, actually, I'm featured in this, which is a source of nervousness. One of the, when they approached me with that idea, that one of my sessions would be included in this book, my first reaction was, oh shit, मैंने कहा क्या था? So, and that's going to be recorded now. But actually, the session that they picked was one of my favorite sessions, not just at JLF, but one of the sessions I've enjoyed most in any Lit Fest anywhere. It was a session that Mr. Debroy, a man I'm a huge fan of, not just for his brilliant economic analysis, but also the translations, the wonderful translations work that he's done of our Sanskrit texts, Mahabharata. He's doing the Ramayana now. So he and I had a conversation on the meaning of dharma and the lessons of dharma from the Mahabharata, and it was a conversation I immensely enjoyed. And I'll just leave a small part of that conversation with you, and hopefully if those of you who weren't present there doing that session or haven't seen the YouTube video, hopefully you'll enjoy reading the text of that conversation. The entire perspective of our epics, Ramayana and Mahabharata, are just one aspect of it. We actually have an entire library of scriptural philosophical texts in India. If there's a graduation course, then the Ramayana and Mahabharata is actually only the first standard, and most of us stop only at the first standard. We don't really go deeper. But even at that first standard, do we really absorb the lessons that are supposed to be learned from the Ramayana and the Mahabharata? So just to give you one perspective, the translation of, or rather the translation of the English word elephant into Sanskrit is Hasti. Okay? And we all know that Mahabharata, the city that was most prominent in that was Hastinapur. So one translation of Hastinapur is the city of elephants. But actually in ancient times, elephants represented wisdom. Lord Ganesh with the elephant head is actually supposed to represent a god of immense wisdom. And so the study of the Mahabharata, in a sense, is actually the study of the city of wisdom. We are supposed to learn lessons about dharma from the Mahabharata. And dharma is obviously very complicated. It's not simple. There's no simple good and evil. For example, there is no Sanskrit word for the English word evil, because ancient concepts weren't that simplistic. So Mr. Debroy and I actually discussed various incidents from the Mahabharata, and discuss what are the lessons, philosophical lessons for dharma from the Mahabharata. This is a conversation I immensely enjoyed, and I hope you guys like it as well. Whenever you read this book, it's available here.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's available at the bookshop.
Being distributed free, or they have to purchase
No,
it?
you have to buy it.
You have to buy it.
Everything else is free. But I was telling Amish,
I thought this was a free festival.
yes, but something have to be paid for. I was saying to
It's-
Amish, you know, it's so incredible. Every time you hear him, and I've heard him in different parts of the world, literally, either been in conversation or heard him, it's incredible. His wealth of stories is like a Krishna's pot. You know, it never ever finishes. And I think we can continue to have a conversation with Amish across the world and read what he writes. And thank you for your
Amish.
incredible mind.
Thank you. Ishani, do you want to add a little about the challenges of working with teamwork?
I've heard this word a couple of times now, most recently, right now, and twice over there, saying challenges, challenges. So I'll try and tell you some of they're not really challenges so much as just funny parts of life that happen when you're coordinating things, which is basically what I did, which is an uncomplicated, if not entirely uncumbersome thing to do. I'm just going to borrow from what you said, which is, oh shit, maine kaha kya tha? Which is what happened to all of the writers when I wrote to them and said, hey, we're using your transcript, I hope that's okay. But the good thing about that is that I now have an email in my inbox from Amish Tripathi and from Amartya Sen, which is kind of cool. Honestly, what I thought was interesting and what was interesting to me was the process of curating what went into the book. And of course, Namita, Sanjoy, William Dalrymple, and Urvashi were instrumental in putting that together. And I just had niggling questions here and there to say, don't we not have enough women yet? Or where are the Indians? And everybody agreed and we put it together in what I think is now as holistic or, you know, umbrella-like a way as it would be possible to put something like this together for the first time. Maybe the second and third times we can do even more.
Yeah. You know, in the months immediately preceding JLF, Sanjoy is all over the world. He's all over the world generally, but in the months immediately preceding, he was all over the world. So we had to coordinate this book, which needed instant decisions, with a mail from Sanjoy sent from some airport saying, I really don't like that cover, change it. And then we had 5 other covers and we were sending them to him saying, which one do you like? And there'd be silence because he was in some plane or something somewhere. And then we had Mani sitting in Australia who was doing the festival brochure and a whole lot of other stuff in which information comes in at the last minute, saying on page XYZ there has to be a correction of this kind and that kind and all of that, putting it in. So it was quite an interesting process of putting it together. I mean, I'm amazed that it actually happened, but that is how things happen in the JLF, with everybody pitching in somewhere or the other. So I'm going to ask Sanjoy to read, and after that we are both going to tell you, please go and buy the book.
Hey, but before that, I think everyone should just applaud for the entire team. The way the entire project was handled, it was very smooth, very professional. Well done.
Thank you.
And including Manil up there.
Yes,
And Namita is here,
Yeah,
finally.
Namita's
Namita
here.
Gokhale.
Come on,
Applause
Namita.
for her too.
So while Namita settles down, I'm going to read the 2 passages. The first is from Mahashweta Devi. By the way, I don't wear glasses. This is just for, you know, I look good on camera. The first is "Oh to Live Again," keynote address by Mahashweta Devi. Was yesterday not full of 1,000 possibilities? That was the life. What has changed since then? You feel weak, insipid, a dreadful, debilitating listlessness worse than malaria fever. It is far, far worse. You're alone. Oh, to live again. Words. From I know not where, a writer in anguish? Perhaps. At my age, the desire to live again is a mischievous one. Having arrived at a netting distance from trapping my 90th year, like catching butterflies with nets of wonder, as the song goes. I must confess this is wishful thinking. Besides, look at all the damage I've already done by being around longer than was expected. At 88, or is it 87, I move forward, often stepping back into the shadows. Sometimes I am bold enough to step back into the sunlight. As a young person, as a mother, I would often move forward to when I was old, amuse my son, pretend that I couldn't hear or see, flail my hands about like in a blind man's game, or make mockery of memory. Forget important things, things that had taken place but a moment ago. These games were for fun. Now they are no longer funny. My life has moved forward and is repeating itself. I am repeating myself, recollecting for you what has been, what is, what could have been, what may have been. Now it's memory's turn to mock me. And I will now move on to Nayanthara's Sehgal's keynote address, and I think this was from the first JLF, if I'm not mistaken, 9 years ago. And I'll read the last bit of her address then. My father, who was a passionate patriot, committed to the overthrow of British rule and was to die of his last imprisonment under the British, wept when London was bombarded in the Blitz and when Hitler's army marched into Paris. If anyone had asked him what race he belonged to, he would have said the human race. In the early 50s, soon after my mother had been elected President of the United Nations General Assembly, she was in London, and Winston Churchill, who was the Prime Minister, asked her to lunch. In the course of the conversation, he suddenly turned to her and said, "We killed your husband, didn't we?" She was so taken aback at this remark from a die-hard imperialist who had vowed never to quit India that she didn't know what to say, and then she found her voice and heard herself saying, "No. Every man lives only to his appointed hour." The end of the story is that they became friends, and he later told her that her brother Jawaharlal Nehru had conquered mankind's two worst enemies, hate and fear. Am I imagining it? Or is that supremely civilized approach to one another missing from today's climate? As I have been writing this, I have had more uncertainties than answers in my mind. But of one thing I am certain, that writers will write, whatever the odds, and I want to wish them safety and freedom in a new year of great writing.
Thank you, Sanjoy. Namita, we've been joined by Namita Gokhale, who is one of the two directors of the festival. Namita, would you like to say something about the book?
Sanjoy was just talking about memory, and it doesn't take long to return to, I think it was 2012, when I was in this very same Mughal tent, except that it was facing in a slightly different direction. And there was the frail figure of Mahashweta Devi speaking to us. And one of the things she said in that session, and in the opening thing as well, is something I've never forgotten. She said, the right to dream should be the fundamental human right. And truly, this fundamental right to dream as the basis of human imagination, human thought, human hopes and aspirations, and the enemy of fear, really, is what I remember from that one. Then there was Nayanthara ji, there were Amartya Sen, there was Girish Karnad, there were so many wonderful keynote addresses. But apart from that, this is just a sampler to give the diversity of our sessions, the incredible range of the people and the ideas that inhabit this book. I don't want to have personal favorites, but there was one with Amish, which
We just talked about it.
various people said was the most poignant session they'd ever heard. There was one with the two Dalit writers,
Charu
Bama and Charu Nivedita,
That's a wonderful.
which was another aspect of the festival. So I urge you to go and look at the book, keep it as a memory keeper of the sessions, and every year we'll be bringing out more and more of these, because a book is a book, and a festival should have its memories not only on YouTube and a flickering screen, but also in words and print and paper. And I thank Urvashi, Zuban, and Ishani, Urvashi is very, very dedicated and talented co-editor, and niece in Zuban, who really put the work into it, because it may look like a simple thing, but there was a huge amount of work involved. Not only were the transcripts there, they had to be cleared, and we won't go into that.
We talked about it. We talked about it.
So,
And
a
money.
very...
Money. She's hiding.
But we've
And we
already...
thank money also.
You know, this year, the stage managers are the people. For years, Mani, who comes here and guides the fortunes of the mood of the Mughal tent. Mani, come and take a bow. Who's also a designer. Has given the shape, design and everything. Please come up.
Come up, come up.
Money, come on up. Come
Mani,
on.
don't waste time.
Come, take a
Jaldi karo.
Jaldi.
So I wish Bibek Debroy was here. He was wearing the same shirt.
Thank you so very much. I've really enjoyed the Mughal tent, and I'm sure the people of the Mughal tent will buy this book, all of you, and enjoy the sessions.
Can
and
I
we will
ask-
put these sessions also in a form of a book very soon.
Can I ask Amish a question? Do we have time, Mani? Amish, do you have a story of Goddess Saraswati and how she became the goddess of knowledge in your treasure trove of stories?
Actually, I do have an interpretation. I will hopefully write that sometime. No, but you have to wait for my book.
Oh, come on. Give us a little.
But there's one line that should always be remembered about Saraswati Ma as compared to Lakshmi Ma. What happens with Lakshmi Ma, chanchal hoti hai. You know that even when you worship her, you may not necessarily get her blessings. But Saraswati Ma, you always get her blessings. So chase knowledge. You always get your blessings when you chase that. Lakshmi Ma bhi aa jayenge.
Dono ki blessings.
Yeah.
Dono ki blessings.
So thank you all, and do please buy the book and recommend it to others. Thank you.
Thank you,
Namita,
thank you,
Sanjoy.
Urvashi. Thank you very much, Ishani, Mani. And really, I mean, the idea of the book is that many of you I know are aspiring writers, aspiring ideators, aspiring entrepreneurs. May you have a million ideas that you take from the festival. May they rise like the firefly out into the dark night and illuminate us all. Thank you all very much.
Now let's hold the book up.
Now, all of you, after the next session, run to the bookstore. Run to the bookstore, buy the book. No, it's not.